Welcome, everybody, to Binford Chronicles. We have another episode for you today, and I'm Joanne Binford, your host. Today, we'll be visiting with Florida gubernatorial candidate Bobby Williams. That's right, Bobby Williams is a native Floridian and a lifelong resident of Winter Haven. I love it out there in Winter Haven, it's beautiful. He's also the founder of the Freedom Tour, a pastor of Freedom Church, and owner of BW Communications. Now he has a bold dream, and that's to run for governor of Florida. Now he's spent most of his life in the small town of Eloise, just outside Winter Haven. Bobby grew up in a close knit community where everyone knew each other. Don't you love communities like that? It wasn't until later in life that he discovered his true calling to transform lives and serve those in need. In 2016, he answered that call by launching the Freedom Tour, a nonprofit that has since grown into a major organization supporting thousands of people across Central Florida each month. Through his work, Bobby has witnessed people at their lowest moments, facing hardship and despair. These experiences have deepened his compassion and strengthened his resolve to make a difference. With a heart of service and firsthand knowledge of the struggles many Floridians face, he believes he can bring real understanding, leadership, and solutions to the state that we love so much. So let's dive into it with gubernatorial candidate for governor of Florida, Bobby Williams. We'll be right back after this message. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us at Binford Chronicles, where we do our best to give you access to the candidate during election season. Joining us today is gubernatorial candidate for governor of Florida, Bobby Williams. Welcome aboard, Bobby.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us today. We really want to get you out there and let everybody know who you are. And you've been a long-time Floridian. And tell us about, just give us a little round, story about who you are, where you come from. We know you're from Florida, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, born and raised in Winter Haven, Florida, obviously my whole life. Third generation, just, you know, had an American dream, just to start a business, kind of create wealth, create a family, do all that. Which at 26, ended up getting married and had a little girl a year later, and started a business. And got very successful at it. It was a lot of stuff. At 32, had an encounter with Jesus, which radically changed my life. Then started going to church, whatever Christian does. And I learned the church don't do much. So the Lord put on my heart to start the Freedom Tour in 2000, really 15, but we incorporated in 16, and just started reaching people and changing lives and making a difference. Even on running for governor now, but politics and people, they sit around and talk about problems, but you don't see much action. So, I say 2/3 of God is good. So I just went and I took what I had, and obviously we had some finances and different things, and we started on a carport feeding 5 to 10 homeless people in 2016. Then COVID hit, and it really blew up. Since then, we've done over 100 million pounds of product. If you had to buy that, it's like 350 million gift in kind. And it's about reaching people, touching people, changing lives, and working with different communities and different groups, sheriff's office and entities, and all across the board, just to bring hope and help people come forward. And it's pretty much what I've done.
Yeah, you've collaborated with Ship.
Yeah, so really exploded, like I said, COVID. pockets with a lot of things. So we do teacher giveaways, teacher outreaches, and then from COVID, we created a system, a liaisons. Started with one here in Polk County, now we have six. So the liaisons go to the principal and figure out what the needs are. So they come back to us and go, hey, they need crayons, they need paper, they need snacks. And one of the biggest things we see a very two things is after school tutorials, kids don't want to go. So now we provide snacks and toys and candy or sports drinks, and now the kids are showing up for doing tutorials and helping them out. Then another thing we launched this year at a local, it's kind of a poverty school, but initiative program. So every month, for almost perfect attendance or close to that, we give them a party, some kind of gifts, prizes. So this last month, I partnered with a lot of different agencies, and one of them is Heroes for Hire. They dress up as superheroes. So they showed up, we got a pizza, and the kids they were so excited. And it's really worked so much that I think it was 14%, now it's at 48%.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah,
That's really
huge difference.
great. Yeah, COVID was really hard on the kids at schools. I know I worked at a middle school during COVID, and I remember the guidance counselors were so concerned. They were like, "There's a lot of a lot of kids that come here, like you were saying, where they get their meals, and also they're going to be home alone because their parents are working, and they're kind of a lock key. We don't want them getting depressed, and we want to make sure that they're getting all their needs. So our schools started having visits. They set up visits to go to try to reach some of those kids because that was a really important time for the kids because it was just dysfunctional, in their lives. They already had tough lives, and now their school, the place where they socialize, the place where they got a meal every day, or if they were in an abusive home, they got to get away from it for a while.
Yeah,
So it was a time that we were very concerned about some of those kids out there, the high risk kids.
yes, ma'am. So what we did too is we would take our trucks or refrigerated box trucks into the communities that we knew that were less privileged. I mean, I'm not a politically correct person. We call them the projects. I've always called them that, low income housing, different housing affordability, things change, but that's where we would go. So we always make a joke. We're more famous than the ice cream truck because we would show up with ice cream sometimes, but everything we do is free. So sometimes it's toys, sometimes it's ice cream, sometimes it's candy, sometimes it's just food, and it's crazy to me. I was raised poor too, but just to see the reactions of these kids' face when you show up, I mean, it makes you feel good and makes like you're making a difference, but then you're seeing a difference in the lives of these kids and families.
Yeah, kids are really a wonderful people, they're little people. They're just it's a shame that the world is so hard on them sometimes because I grew up. My parents were divorced, but I still got to grow up as a kid. And kids should not have any worries. Kids should just not even realize the world is around them. They should just be there playing and growing and learning about life and playing in the grass and looking at the ants and just simple stuff. Just having a simple life, a simple beautiful life. But life just is not that way. It's difficult.
It's changed. It's changed from when we were kids, and
Yeah.
a lot of that's we got away from God centered a lot of stuff. And
Uh,
because I get that all the time, the kids, parents should raise their kids, and they blame it on the parents, but the parents are so self focused and so selfish that they're not thinking about the kids.
mhm.
The bad side of it. So our goal is go there, try to be that family figure, father figure, whatever that is. Man, their life matters. That somebody cares for them. We show up because of you, the kids, and just show them that somebody cares. Because a lot of
Yeah, I had a teacher, like I said, my parents were divorced, and I remember my parents went when my mom was she went through a struggling period, so I was the youngest of five. So I ended up staying with my mom, and I remember I didn't have a lot of clothes. I didn't wear a lot of different clothing to school. And I remember one teacher approached me and she said, my daughter has clothes she outgrew, but I felt so embarrassed. And I was only I want to say I was like 7, And I felt so embarrassed because I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's trying to give me hand-me-downs, so she must know that I've been wearing these pants like the third time this week." You know? So I can get it how kids can, at a young age, can feel that, you know?
Yeah,
They're aware of the things that go on. You know what I wanted to ask you is because you have a ministry, so it's a great opportunity to connect with these kids. And even though they're coming from like divorced families, like I came from, or they're coming from families that are struggling, are you able to somehow minister to them how wonderful it is to uh, marriage and family and parenting, how wonderful that is? How do you do that without it being a grown up thing, but a subliminal message for those kids? Because, you know, I grew up looking at other people. So when I saw other families, I would compare them to what's going on in my family. And it helped me to realize that there's a difference. Like, not everybody's like what I have at home. And I met some really wonderful people that had a long life impression on me. So when I became a mother, it was so important to me to be a great mother because I knew, well, I missed out on some of that. So, like, I'm wondering, how is your ministry able to transfer that energy to these children?
100%. I tell people, so many people get caught up in words. So a lot of times it's a smile, but my biggest thing is a hug. I mean, just hugging these little kids and just watching put a smile on their face, and just I had to, I struggled with it in a sense when it first started because just what you said. How do you per se, let them know as a child, you're an adult, you're trying to talk to a child. How do you convey that message? But I think we overlook that. I mean, if you, they're smarter than we think. I don't know. We just I think in society we look at kids off. You can't talk to them as a grown up, but you'll be surprised. And now I look back at my life. You get back to your childhood, think 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. What I thought, what I did. It was really just talking to them like they're adults in the
Mhm.
sense of just make it simple. You know,
Mm.
and how you doing today? Hey, man, today's awesome. Ain't today a great day, man? I'm just here to see you. I love seeing a smile on you. And what I do is I got little sayings. Like one of them is, hey, smile, you'll look a lot prettier. Smile like a Christmas tree, and just small things like that. Just make them feel good. Because I think society beats them up so much, and whether it's parents, mom, dads, some of them don't feel like they have self worth. Some of them don't feel like they want to live. But when you go there with a smile, say, man, you're awesome and amazing, man, you're pretty, you're beautiful. God created you just like you are, and just lift them up, and just
Yeah. Do
be
you
positive.
find that God gives you the words of wisdom to just deliver a little, sometimes an elder will deliver a message to me and just few words, and I'll be like, wow, that was, 5 words were so powerful. You have a great opportunity to do that with these children. Do you find that inspiration, the Lord working through you in that way?
100%. Sometimes people don't understand God, how much He talks and how He talks and that kind of stuff, and even thoughts. So sometimes it's words of knowledge, words of wisdom, like you said, and God will
Hmm.
give you just drop a nugget, just like a thought in your mind, and go, hey, is this going on or that going on? Like, how'd you know that? Well, God loves you so much, and He told me this about you, and He wants to show He's watching, He's listening, and He cares about you.
Hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. Now, you also collaborated with the sheriff's department
Yeah, we
for
did
hurricane relief, right? Tell
both.
us about that.
So it first started in COVID. In COVID, we were getting so many awesome boxes of food, and every year, our sheriff here, to me, people get mad at me because everybody got a greatest sheriff, but we got the greatest sheriff, greatest Jeff, and but he does turkey drives and giveaways. We partnered with him doing turkey drives. Then it just kind of blew up from there on that partnership to where now we do outreaches, sometimes quarterly or monthly. We go into, you know, not the worst, but some rundown areas that really have crime and really need help, and just show up there. My job is I provide free stuff, and the sheriff they got buggies and toys and airboats and that kind of stuff too. But it's kind of to help them help us, but we work together. But a sheriff ain't so bad. These police officers, their fathers, their mothers, their grandmas, grandpas, their daughters, sons, and they're not here just to drag your mom and daddy away. They're here because they care and want the best for you. So we partnered them with COVID. Then actually through the sheriff and our radio, we partnered with a lot of sheriffs throughout the state. So we were getting Clorox 360, hand sanitizer wipes on semi loads. So we were then shipping them to different counties and different sheriff's offices. Some of them showed up at our place. They would load up. Then from that, we developed partnerships and friendships. So Sheriff Sam St. John in Suwannee County, Live Oak, we partnered with him, and he knew we'd have resources and we'd always help. So it was a pretty cool story. He called me the day the storm's coming in the next day. The state decided, hey, y'all need to shut down. You need to open up all your shelters. So you shut schools down, open shelters. Well, they did that. They didn't have food in the shelters. The schools, they were kind of looking at the hurricane and different things. I'm thinking maybe on a weekend or something, so they didn't have the food they needed. So,
Wow.
so this is like 10:30. The storm's coming in the next day. They already got people in shelters. So we literally loaded up the semi in like 2, 3 hours, and we sent it to them. Within about 5 hours, he had a semi full of meats, sides, everything he needed to cook for hundreds of people. And we continued to do that. So every time a storm comes or whatever, especially him, well, I think they got the last 3 or 4 hurricanes almost some kind of effect on them the last 3 or 4 years. So we really partner with them and send resources and try to help them the best we can.
So you've got a lot of people that join in and come out, and you put the word out and say, "Hey, I need volunteers. We need this," and they just all come out. They come out of the woodwork for you.
Yeah,
Oh,
people want to serve, and that's the deal. People don't they miss. People want to go and serve. They just don't have the opportunities. And a lot of times, the government and red tape it keeps them out of it.
mhm.
But a lot of people want to serve. They want to come be a partner, want to help.
So this is a nonprofit. So is this a nonprofit, a private nonprofit? Is it all? Are you raising your money through the community? How are you raising your money?
Well, the first 5 years it was out of my pocket. Then I hate to say it for me, but it was true. COVID was a blessing. People obviously it showed the need of food, people struggling. So it opened up the doors to a lot of ministries around us and people, and they seen what we were doing and willing to do. So we were working, I think 2020 to 2023 was pretty much 7 days a week, anywhere from 16, 20 hours a day. We were hustling and running. But what we do too, so the first thing is my personal money. Then obviously I pastor a church, so 100% of the tithes and offerings that go to the church go to Freedom Tour. So nothing stays in Freedom Church; everything goes to Freedom Tour. So that's a pretty good chunk. Then United Way partnered with us; they're a big partner. Then Sheriff Judd gives Polk County Charities, and he helps us out a lot.
Very good, very good. So how's your ministry? Is How many members do you have in your ministry?
It fluctuates anywhere from 100 to 250, somewhere depends.
That's pretty good size.
Yeah, people are finicky.
Hmm.
Actually, I didn't shut down during my largest was COVID. We were about 350. I didn't shut down. I didn't shut doors. Um, I said I'm going to be a man of faith, and we had the constitutional right to assembly, and we did
Hmm.
that. So
Good.
we had to cut down a lot of walls, tear down a lot of walls, and we had like pretty much people sitting on the floor in the hallways because they wanted to come to church. You know,
Yeah.
they
The
missed
only person that's going to shut you down is the Lord, and He'll never shut you down for prayer.
people, and I showed how desperate, hungry people were. And we grew like crazy, and I didn't have. It got to where they were parking in the middle of the road, and it pretty much some people got aggravated and frustrated because you couldn't park, and that's what happened after COVID left. You know, people had other churches to go. It was fine, but I just wanted to show them I was standing on faith and had a place to come to and
Hmm.
worship, symbol.
Hmm. Very good. I love that. I love that side of you. Now let's get to the political side of you now as governor. I want to first start by having you tell our viewers, because not everybody knows the responsibilities of a governor. So can you share that with some of our viewers that are not really sure? Because we have DeSantis, and he's just always he's kind of like a Grady Judd. He's like, this is happening, this is happening. We're not having transgender in schools. We're not. So tell our viewers what your responsibilities are going to be as a governor.
Well, my number one is stop development. We have to slow development down. it's way out of hand, and that's not getting coming out of the governor's office now. And I don't know that it will. So we need a governor that's going to do that. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have.
Yeah.
I mean, the roads. It, I can go on and I will. I mean, like we talk about mental stress now. That's kind of the forefront of everything. How much of that comes from the traffic, aggravation, and frustration of all these developments and traffic and piling these people in there? Then, since I've been here all my life, since I was a kid, we've had water restrictions. And how can we pump hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of people in here and keep them having coming? Where are we going to get water from? Somewhere or enough's enough. I use this concept. When Disney's full, they can't safely put you in the park. They can't safely feed you, house you, security. They quit selling tickets. And I think in Florida somewhere, it's got to be people over profits, and we got to say enough enough.
Yeah, because Winter Haven, I remember I haven't been there in a long time, but it was it was probably in the early 90s that I was out there, and it was very country like. I was like, "Oh my God, I love it out here." It's like this is Southern boy land. But
They're strong, but it's got
it's grown, hasn't it? And that's kind of how my town is. We have about 170,000 residents here, but it's growing so fast that the infrastructure, the pipes, like just 2 weeks ago, they had to put one of those rubber sleeves in the pipes right outside my house because there was a crack in them. And the pipes are, made out of that clay or whatever it is. And with the infrastructure that's going in, all that water and all that sewer, it's got to go through those pipes, and they didn't build like giant pipes. The pipes are smaller. They're not really huge pipes like you would see in a big city like New York City. They're smaller pipes. So some of those, when they're connecting the new ones, because we have an urban service area out west, so if we were going to go out west, you're going to have to somehow figure out how those new pipes are going to slowly bring them to the smaller pipes, because I'm sure with all the new infrastructure there's going to be codes where your pipes need to be wider and they got to connect to these smaller pipes, and you got to dig up roads. And you also have to, like our town, my when I ran for county commission, I was like, we got to bring business here, because if we don't have the business here and all we have is homes, we're going to have high price living with no jobs. And that's kind of where we're at here in our town, Indian River County. Is it similar to that in Winter Haven?
it's in the whole state. Obviously doing Facebook and people say you need to talk more than just overdevelopment. That's the cry of the people. Every county from the Panhandle to the Key West, that's the cry of the people. Enough's enough, and nobody's saying no. And developers, they got free reign. They go to the county and the county says no. They'll go to the city and the city says no. Or they'll find a loophole. Obviously, you look at a county commissioner talking about that. They'll find a loophole some way through the state or somewhere, and they just do what they want. Then they just, they get approval some way somehow. Then, I think some legislation like SB 180 kind of gave them some lawyers some little open holes and everything. Then they're just allowed to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
cities
Um,
and people are aggravated and frustrated, but even me running for governor, what do we do? I said, well, it's got to start with the governor.
mm-hmm. And I was just listening the other day to, I'm trying to figure out what the name of that group was. Thousand Friends of Florida. Have you ever heard of that group? Thousand Friends of Florida keeps up on the land purchases, and uh, Indian River County had a huge land purchase, but this came up, SB 180. Have you heard of that bill, SB 180?
That's what I was just talking about.
Okay, that's the one you were talking about.
There's at the very end of that, it gives loopholes. That was
Yes.
created for a hurricane. So if your house got destroyed, usually during the permit period, if you tear a house down, they usually give you a year, maybe two, if that, without paying impact fees. If you let go on that, then you obviously got to pay impact fees. Then you got to go back, obviously, new code and all that. So SB 180 was really help hurricane stuff. But just like developers do, they create, or even politicians that work with developers, they put these little loopholes and word it like they want it to where they get away with it. And that's
Yeah, because they were talking about how this really pretty much puts the county in a bind, because we do our plans like 5 years out. And according to this, if somebody says, well, you're not being, you're making it difficult, you're being restrictive or burdensome, they can sue the county.
Yeah,
So it doesn't give us, the community, the right to decide how our community grows.
right. And I think one of my ideas really even get development back into the people's hands to where, especially when you're talking large tracts, I don't know how to put a large tract in there without the people voting on it. Because we've seen with the loopholes and everything, developers get winning, and somewhere we got to let the people back have a voice.
Yeah. How many residents do you have out there in Winter Haven?
Winter Haven, I think we're 50,000 somewhere around there. But Polk County, we've grown. We were at 5 or 6 thousand. They're planning on being a million by 2030. We were the fastest growing county in the nation at one time here recently.
Wow. Yeah. That's, well, you're still small compared to us.
Yeah.
But you still have a lot of land out there.
Well, Winter Haven is kind of smaller, but you got Lakeland's huge. You got Lakeland, and you got Haines City is growing over in the Four Corners. Haines City will be the largest here pretty soon once all the developments have been approved and gone through.
Tell Bobby, tell me what you think about the no tax, no property tax.
I like
What?
it. I've said it for years. It makes 100% sense. There's no reason that somebody, especially when you get older, a lot of people can't. They barely afford to get by as it is. You see increase in groceries, increase in electric bills, increase in a lot of things. Then they're seeing now increase in their property tax. We see them. We see them losing their houses, losing their property. Then investors come in, they love it, and they come in and take advantage of it, which ain't fair. So I've said that for years.
Do you think that'll encourage the counties to start looking at bringing more profitable businesses into their town so that they have a taxing base besides the people?
Well, that and waste. We're looking at fraud right now. Doge is going across the state. They're showing a lot of waste. Whether it's waste or fraud or whatever, to where I think we have to get less responsibility off the government. The people have voted for years, and some of them not voted. It has happened to where we expect the government to do everything.
Yeah.
And,
we have a very entitled generation below us.
Yeah. And whether it's a parade or event downtown, they expect the city or the county to put it on, and we have to stop that. Just look at, especially if you want cheaper taxes and you want to get down to this, we got to get less government. And there's plenty of ministries and people, businesses that do that kind of stuff. But same way, is not a ministry or a business going to do it when the county or city's out spending all the money.
Absolutely correct. I remember reading I visited your website. Now you were talking about mini homes.
Yes.
Tell me about that. That's very interesting. I'd like to hear that.
It ain't just mini homes, but it's campgrounds. So nobody has a solution for homelessness, because it's easy to make. How many campgrounds you got across Florida? You got plenty. With a campground, you can't stay but 28 days. Then you got to stay out 28 days. And the reason for that is they're campground for a reason. You want to go there with your family. You don't want people permanent homes and all that kind of stuff. But if we created that, and I'm a very faith, I believe in faith. I know faith works. But if we create the government paying for it,
right? Because whenever the government really gets something and hangs on to it, it just gets worse.
They ruin
it becomes a place where they say they're funneling money to, but it's actually ending up somewhere else. I mean, if it was going to where it needed to be, we wouldn't see cities like San Francisco and poop maps, so that you don't go in the areas where there's feces.
And that's where obviously it's got to be monitored better. But faith-based programs, they're already putting the effort in. They're putting the work in. They're willing to go out and do it every day. They got the volunteers. They got all that kind of stuff. So even if it's a grant, but then property is designated for a campground, so it's nice. It's got roads in it. You can put even an office in there for officer, sheriff's officer, whoever. They have an office in there. It can be cameraed. But then you can start with tiny homes. Depends on the money you have. If you have enough money for a tiny home, do it all. It's fine. But if you start out with 100 tiny homes, then you got some empty lots. And they can park. They got water there. They can park their car. They can start with a tent, whatever that is. But it gives them somewhere to go that gets them sleeping on the sidewalk, sleeping in their car, at a Publix parking lot, a Walmart parking lot. But it's a destination you can give them. Then obviously it's faith based because
Mhm.
that's what's going to work and change obviously their life.
Yeah. I also kind of wanted to ask you, um, my mind just had so many things I wanted to ask you that all just went like this.
I'll tell you what, I get
But
write it down so I get told all the time.
so, how do you feel about the open carry that we have now here in Florida?
I like it, but it's like everything. You're going to have idiots, and I actually asked our sheriff. I talked with him and go, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And the problem is you're going to have idiots strap AK-47s on their back and walk up and down the streets, and we've seen that right off the bat. But you know, if people have enough sense, and most people do, you don't see that. People just want the right to protect themselves, and
Mhm.
I truly believe, you know, if people know you have a gun, and that's what the reason why Florida's so safe. You have the right to, on your house, somebody come to your house, you have the right to shoot them. Or on your property, right to shoot them. So I think you're seeing a lot less burglars, you know, because people are. It ain't just worried. Call a cop in 45 minutes, so I can get in their house, rob them, and leave in 45 minutes. I think it keeps crime down because people don't know who's carrying, who's not carrying, and Florida's full of a bunch of good old boys who you carry.
Yeah, and I know a lot of good old boys, and they prefer to conceal carry, but they like the idea that now it's really your Second Amendment.
Right.
Whereas, and we put that Facebook guy out of business because he used to carry his AR-15 just to see how the cops would react and people would react. And there's no need for that anymore because it's like a fad. Some people will go out and do it because they've always wanted to,
Yeah.
and then it'll be a fad that will go away. But most gun owners, legal gun owners like you and I, they just would rather be concealed because you're a target. You're a
If it's
target for
well, that's right.
somebody
Yeah, you don't
who wants to
nobody.
do harm.
That's right. If you got to stick them out there doing it, people are just going to shoot you first.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's going to be like,
When
I
you
feel
rob,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
when
I
you rob,
feel evil today. I'm going to take out that person first so I can continue to be evil.
you watch enough movies and they rob a bank. What's the first person they go to? They get the security guard.
That's right.
But it's always the guy who's standing in line, who's an undercover, who has it. That
Right.
really saves the whole day, right?
Yeah, it
So
does.
it's it's
So,
it's it's back to a fear.
mhm.
People of not knowing. So when a criminal don't know who's carrying and is scared, okay, we see it. You got blue states where you can't have guns and you see the crime.
Oh, it's high.
Yeah,
It's high crime, and you can't take care of yourself. You can't take care of your neighbor, and there's no more Daniel Pennies anymore because when you do help somebody in those blue states, you get sued and you get put in jail.
yeah. And that's what a lot of us we got to look at. Across the state, even that is, getting rid of lawsuits. There's a lot of nonsense lawsuits that people shouldn't do. My first, if somebody breaks in your house and they trip and fall and hurt themselves, they should have no right to sue you.
Mm-mm, they didn't belong there.
Once you create a criminal offense, you should lose every right to sue somebody.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
It's like you came into my property, into my space, threatening, uninvited, unwelcome.
yeah,
It's almost like it's a non-recorded trespass.
yeah,
Because if I wrote a trespass order on somebody and they stepped on my property, they would be in trouble right away.
yeah.
So
But it's like you
it's
see it, people break into houses, somebody shoots them, they're suing them. And it's like you
yeah,
should
it's ridiculous.
once you create a criminal offense in any way, you should lose every right to sue.
Mhm. Yeah. So, that's a good question, though. I just had to know how you felt about that. I know you're a good old Southern boy, and you
I
probably
used to, I did it on accident. We went. I loved to hunt. I'm dove hunting. When I was in high school, we went dove hunting on the weekend. I left the shotguns in the bed of my truck. And we went to school. Luckily, nobody had seen them. But back before us, you had to have shotguns in the back window, and it was no big deal. It was just something that was standard.
well,
And
believe it or not, in New York, if you were in upstate New York or in Long Island, all the boys had their rifles in the back of their pickup trucks
Yeah,
because they had shooting sports as well in schools. That was an activity in schools
yeah.
when I was growing up. Now, oh, God forbid, you know?
I know my nephew, he goes to Gainesville, Georgia, and they have a skeet, but it might be a private school, but they have skeet shooting as part of their deal. So obviously, he's got to bring a gun somewhere somehow.
Hmm.
It works, but yeah, but
Yeah.
it ain't a. It's the stupidity. It ain't a gun who kills somebody. It's a person.
Yeah, so you might have to deal with issues. Well, I mean, the transgender thing still hasn't gone away, and they're still going to be fighting back. And Ron DeSantis really took a good grip of that. And how would you deal with these issues?
Same. I say this: anytime you come off the truth, any bit, you open yourself to deception, and once you open yourself to deception, it gets worse. And I feel like from the '90s, '80s, and '90s, LGBTQ back then they had initials. They weren't a front, but I think with grace and mercy, we gave them a voice. But we've seen what they did. They just shove in our face, and we're right, you're wrong. And I think we give them way too much leniency, and it's got to get back to if you want to do what you want to do in your own home, that's you. But once you start bringing out parades in front of everybody and trying to put it in schools and trying to get our kids to do it, man, you're an American citizen and you're even a God created. He gave you a free will. If you want to do it and you're private, that's fine. But don't push it on your kids. And my biggest thing on that is this: you have the highest rate of suicide rates in teen youth in that.
Hmm.
Don't you think it's a problem? And that's what say Jesus the answer. We don't have suicide rates when you're full of Jesus. So it ain't that shove it down your throat, even religion shove it down your throat. But we love them. I'll tell you a cool story. So I had a guy, local guy here at church, walk him down the street. We're in a bad community. Well, it used to be a bad community. But he would go in corners and he would prostitute himself and he would beg for money and do all this kind of stuff. And just I'm just gonna be honest, it was me, pretty much 6'1" guy, good looking guy, but he would dress the whole he would have a full wig on, skirt, all this kind of stuff. But he'd avoided me forever. But I said, hey man, how can I help you? What can we do? What can we do to help you? You need some food, you need something. What can I do? A tent. And it took me about a year and a half to finally stop by. And I gave him a tent, and I gave him a generator, then I gave him some food. Then he seen I cared. Then a couple months later, he was in church, and he fully dressed as a woman. He come to church, he sat in the back, he was like, going up, didn't say nothing to him. Wasn't long after that, he did an altar call. Then he would do altar call every time he would come. He just wasn't truly getting it. Then that went on for about 6, 8 months, and I'd hug him, talk to him, man, what can I pray for you? You know. But then he went to jail, he disappeared for about a year or two. I didn't see him. And then he come back just here recently, and he was fully dressed. And he said, "Hey, you remember me?" I said, "Yeah, I remember you." He said, "Man, I found God in jail, in prison, radically changed my life. I'm a man now, I'm a different man, that kind of stuff." So you love them, but I don't mean this the wrong way. Jesus works. The gospel works. It's transformational. But if you love them, do it. And no different
Yeah,
our stuff in your face, but you're not going to shove your stuff in our face. So,
I think the biggest misconception of that whole thing was that they thought that we were against them. Like, yeah, we don't believe in that because we're Christians and we follow the Bible and we know that God made man and woman. And we are compassionate to them because for me, they have some kind of imbalance or it's sad to think that a person doesn't love who they are because they are made in the image of God. But the misconception, that is the misconception because I grew up in New York City and I can tell you I saw all walks of life in New York City. And as kids, we used to hang out on a corner right next to a bakery because the guy was so nice he would give us apple turnovers for free, fresh out of the oven. And we would hang out there and talk and congregate. And there was this, and we called them transvestites at that time. And he literally would stand there in his tight pants and dress and his long hair, and he would come and talk with us and we'd hang out and we would just outright ask him questions like, hey, why is this, how do you get yourself flat in that area, like how does that happen? You're supposed to have a bulge,
Yeah.
and because we're teenagers and we're like, what's going on? And he was
Right.
he was really understanding, and it was no big deal for us. We were like, yeah, that's him and this is us. And he didn't ask us to call him a woman. He
Yeah.
knew that he was a man and that he liked dressing like a woman. But the biggest thing that I think concerned us is when they started tampering into the
Yeah.
children,
Right.
because children are innocent
Right.
and they are made pure.
Right.
And to confuse them, I mean, they still don't even know what, you know, intimacy is. They don't know those things. And to transform them is kind of abusive. And that's where we started to speak
Right.
up. We really don't care what adults do. We are Christians and we're going to follow our beliefs and our systems and help people. We have compassion for them. But when it comes to children, that's where we came up in arms. And when it came to the books that we saw that were coming into
Yeah.
schools that were indoctrinating these kids, and then they were using the excuse that, oh, well, some kids go through this, so we should be able to write books about this and let kids read it. And it's like, no, that's a traumatizing thing. That's not therapy for a kid
Yeah.
that went through such a traumatic to now read it in a book and it's published and now everybody's getting entertainment from it. That
Yeah.
it just was very sad because we love those people and we pray for those
Right.
people, and we care about those people, and we'll sit down and talk with them and uh, accept them. But we're not going to, like Charlie Kirk said, don't force me to call you a woman when you're a man. And then it went to the other extreme where women couldn't feel safe in their own private spaces. So
Yeah.
it got so extreme, and it was nothing about hate, but it was actually, you are taking from us now,
Yeah.
you know
Well, it's funny you said that because obviously I was thinking Charlie Kirk. You said Charlie Kirk, but so the problem is even in schools we don't teach truth. That's what I love about Charlie Kirk. He was standing on truth, wasn't willing to
hmm
waver, whether getting assassinated or slapped or yelled at or humiliated. He wasn't willing to come off truth, and truth works. And that's where even in schools, these kids need to be taught truth. Because if you're never taught truth, and you're taught all these lies, then you believe the lies. And that's back to where anytime you get off the truth, you open yourself to deception. And anytime we allow this little bit to come in, it happens. And I always think of the story, we're from the South Florida. You didn't have long hair or earrings. You'd end up getting bullied or beat up. And unfortunately, that's just society in the South was. And I think of the band Leonard Skinner. They used to go to all these truck stops when they were young in the band, and these truckers would beat them up, just because they had long hair. Just society did. And I think, like I said, we gradually got to a little mercy, a little grace. But the problem is, like you said, not only just want to do it in your private of your home, now you want to go in TV, then you want to go to the parades, then you want to go to our youth and our kids. And you get the old saying, you give them a little, they take a
Mm.
lot.
Yeah, and then you want us to say the lie, and truth is love. If I'm going to feed you, you're obviously there's something that you need help with.
That's right.
If I'm going to call you something you're not, and then pretend that we can all be somebody. If my child decided that they wanted to be a cat, I'd put them outside for the night.
There you go.
Like,
Well, here's some cat food.
here's the cat food.
Well,
You
you
can
want to
go
sleep in the
outside
kennel?
for the night.
Get in the
Like,
kennel, cat food.
yeah.
When you gotta go to the bathroom, you go to that little sandbox over there, and let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah, like let's be real. Let's look at ourselves, find out what's making us feel that way. Let's love ourselves, and
And
we love you.
a lot of it comes from it's back to the gospel and truth. A lot of that comes from molestation. They were you be people are. I'm surprised as a pastor and leader the molestation that comes from uncles and aunts and just family members, and not just women. We think of so much in little girls, man. It's just as bad in boys. And a lot of that comes from that molestation of a child. But it's saying all that to me, obviously, to me, the Bible works. And one of the greatest verses I love in the Bible is you'll know them by their fruit. If you truly do Jesus and truly about the gospel, not man made religion, the gospel, it transforming, it'll change your life, and it's a good life. The other, I don't see transformation, not in a good way. And you see the torment, you see the drugs, you see the alcohol, trying to deal with all the issues and the pain. So my answer to them is, I don't see yours working. Mine works. It's transformed my life, and it works. And it's the fruit of it. So my thing is, I tell them like, I said, man, just try it. You've tried your life for 50 something years. How's it worked out for you? So just give me a couple weeks, give me a month or two. Just come in here and just give me an opportunity. I'm not asking for nothing. Just give me an opportunity. What you've
Mhm.
done so far hasn't worked, but you see a group of people that can tell you, and friends you know, that it's worked. And we've seen his life change, and we see others' life change. So it worked.
Mhm. Yeah, some of these people just need a lot of love and caring, or they needed it when they were growing up so that they could feel confident in who they are and not need all that attention and try to hurt themselves or change who they are to realize how beautiful they already are,
Right.
you know? And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is our borders, Florida borders. We've got
I
a lot of
don't know.
people crossing over.
Well, the problem is we've had borders since Florida existed. Why is borders an issue now? It should have been. It's always should have been an issue. I mean, we look at sex trafficking. We're probably
Mm.
outside of Texas and California. We're the third somewhere there drug capital of the world.
Yeah,
And what
it's shameful.
it aggravates me, these governors and these people in power and place, you know, now all of a sudden it's important. It's been important for many years. We've seen the Cubans, the Haitians, drugs, sex
Well,
trafficking.
it has, but during the Biden era, it was like the
Oh, yeah.
floodgates opened.
But
So,
but back to you start allowing a little bit of the truth. You open this a little bit of deception. You give them a mile. Why do my question is why do we expect any different? If you give your teenager a mile or an inch, what's he gonna take?
mhm,
So if you give any criminal anything an inch, what are they going? They're going to take that mile. So we should be strict on all that. We should have been strict years ago on that. We should be stopping these boats coming in now. We've got the Coast Guard. I mean, you see Trump. That's a good thing. Like Trump's not a politician, and that's what Florida needs: the governor, not another politician. Somebody that hears people and sees the issue and willing to the persecution, the, the people are going to come to him left or right and say this ain't right. But we should have been fighting drugs. Supposedly we were fighting drugs since the Bush era or Reagan era, but we never did. You know, there's ways we could stop it years and years ago. But
well, there's a
obviously,
lot of things going on with previous presidents, even with the Afghanistan wars, where they were lying about those, and the soldiers were like, "We need to get out of here. This is not helping."
no, it's just the
It's
corruption so bad, and these guys are being bought, and you, I follow the money. Look at these guys who are running for office. Look at their donors. They're going to bow to the donors. Whatever their donors are in, business are in, is who they're going to bow to, unfortunately. And it's all corruption. And like I said, it's always exposed. It's getting exposed more. But the question is, what's going to be done? We can
mm,
debate Florida all we want to, but what's going to be done? We it's so sad and so bad that corruption's in our face. We know it.
mm.
We can name it. We can name names. We can trace this and trace that, and we talk about it. And one way,
How would you deal with that? How would you deal with that?
the corruption,
Yeah.
well, you put them in jail. Don't you got to start with everything. As soon as you find it, prosecute them, and you got to get people and sheriffs willing to prosecute them. Until people start getting prosecuted, nothing ain't going to change. I mean, they could talk about Biden and Biden's son, all these people, and left. The corruption's so deep, it's both sides, but nothing's happened. You see, nobody going to jail until somebody starts going to back to fear. Until you start putting fear in people and arresting, it's not going to happen. So as a governor, you can start putting these people. To me, I think you almost need to create a department like an FBI department that all they do is corruption, and you got to
Mhm.
get the guys in there and that will expose it and do it, and start prosecuting one after another. That's the only way it's going to stop.
Bobby, would you would you try would what do you think about foreign land bankers buying Florida land?
No, you shouldn't. There's two things need to stop. One's foreign bankers, and two, private equity firms. You got firms like it ain't BlackRock, it's Black. Come to me here in a minute. But they're coming here buying up all these developments. They're running prices up like crazy because they got billions and trillions of dollars. They don't care what they pay for them. Then once they get it, they notice supply and demand there, so they run the rent up extravagant. Well, then what that does, it causes the everyday Floridian who owns rentals that say they charge $1,000 for the last 10 years. Well, these guys have to come in here and buy whole developments up. They're getting 2,500 because supply and demand. So now the everyday Joe is raising his rent up to 1,700, $1,800. So to me, you got to get rid of the foreign and the investment firms coming in here buying all this stuff up, houses and developments.
When we're talking about land and space, I want to move on to another challenging subject. We're looking at Dearborn, Michigan, Hamtramck, Patterson, New Jersey, that have been taken over by Islamic regimes, Islamic Brotherhood. If that comes to Florida, how would you deal with that?
You can't stop religion, but
It's not religion. Islam is a governance.
right. Well, you can't change our rules. We serve under God. We're Christian based. I wouldn't allow any kind of Muslim or Shiite, whatever law that is, to come in here. You got to keep it Christian. I'm 100%. It works. We're not going to change from that. We're actually my goal is to get God back in school, prayer back in school, get it where it needs to be, and teach these kids to pray the way and right way to live. And it's probably going to be a huge fight, but I'm willing to fight for it. I'm going to fight for it.
You're going to fight for religion,
Christian values.
Christian values.
Yes.
So Sharia law, would that Randy Fine is trying to ban that in the state of Florida. How do you feel about
Yeah,
that?
it shouldn't be. We don't have Sharia law. We have Christian values, the laws we have. We don't need Sharia law or any kind of Muslim. I I get why we have freedom of religion. I get that. So the whole concept, and that's where people miss it, separation from church and state. I don't think the church should be in the state, and I don't think the state should be in the church. But the problem, people, the misinterpretation there, the gospel is not church. It's the foundation of not only we live in, the foundation of the United States, the foundation of the Constitution. So you can't separate the Word of God from our government. Two different things.
Well, our government was built on, and like Charlie Kirk would tell you, the first unions, you had to have
Yeah.
faith. You had to be faith. Um, you had to have faith in God, and
And
God was mentioned 4 times in the Declaration of Independence, and that's how they put together our Bill of Rights. To protect our inalienable rights, and the Constitution is based on that.
where does do not steal, do not kill? Where does all that come from? It comes from the foundation of the Bible, and we've allowed the enemy to come in and take that and peel that away by people crying out of separation of church and state. Like I said, the church is messed up. I agree with that. Church shouldn't be in the state. But the gospel is real, the Bible is real, it works, it's changing, life changing, transformational. We got to stick with that. And we got to get back to principles. And all these other career law or Islam, whatever, they have no right, not only in Florida, but really in America.
Mhm. Right. Now, how, everybody's always talking about the lagoon, the waterways, and how are you seeing that? What's your focus on that?
A lot of issues. We got to quit spraying. We got to get people from spraying all these waterways, polluting these waters. I grew up on a lake. When I was 19, I started fishing off the coast, Gasparilla, Boca Grande area, and I seen red tide in there. They can tell you what you want to and give you scientific facts, but me and the everyday person know it's come from pollution. It's killing fish, or killing our fisheries. We got large corporations all over that are dumping,
Mhm.
illegally dumping and dumping and dumping. The fines ain't big enough because they keep doing it. If you make them their fines, whether they go bankrupt or not, they'll probably stop doing it. So we have to do something about that to save our fisheries. And even with development's destroying our waterways. You know, we don't have enough water. So now they want to pump out of rivers and pump out of that river, and you're steady changing, you know, your water supply. And then they're pumping the pollution into the water supply. They're trying to, right now they're pumping a lot of polluted water down as they can, thousands of feet. Then now they're trying to go deeper to find different kind of water and change it. So it's just like I mean, when's enough? If I when's enough? You're polluting waters from development, big corporations, all this stuff, and we got to say enough's enough, and we could have stopped it.
There's one thing I wanted to ask you earlier, but I couldn't remember about it, but it just came to mind, and it has to do with schools. Have you heard about new homeschool?
No, man.
Am I saying it right? New homeschool. It's where a charter school can take over space in your school district, one of the schools that is either performing low or it's performing low in grades, or it has low attendance where it's lost students. So they actually can take over part of your school, request to take over part of your school, and then the school has to pay for your food, your buses. It has to pay for everything that you need. And then it takes the FTE money that the school would take, and it would go to that school that's actually teaching on that campus. And that school would have its own principal on the campus of the school that has a principal.
So it's back to we're just throwing darts on the wall. The whole problem is our public schools. We've got away from teaching our kids life skills. We got away from teaching our kids trades. We got away from teaching our kids from basic math. I mean, just basic life, ethics, manners, and just life. I mean, we have to fix our public education. We got to quit trying to band-aids on everything. And let's go back to the root of the problem. The root of the problem. I agree with school choice. You're good with that. If you want to spend money and go get money, go to your different school till we fix the education. And it can maybe stay that way. But we have to fix our education, our public schools. Everybody wants to go to a Christian school. Everybody wants to go to this school. And I get that. But what's the issue is we got 70, 80% of kids who can't go to other schools. We have to look at I hate to say this word, but I'm going to. Our public school sucks. It's just I mean, it's just the truth. It just
Well, they do. Think about it, Bobby. Everybody says that, like for Indian River County, where our school district is like one of the top 5. But when you think about it, the whole nation after COVID went on a sliding scale. So what an A is today is not what an A was before COVID.
well, the problem is
So
all you're doing is teaching your kids to take a test. So if I can get my kid to learn how to pass a test and get a good grade, the school gets a good grade, and we continue money to that. What have we done for our kids? We've done nothing. I don't really care what the school grade is. What are the results of the kids? How life transforming in these kids? How are these lives being changed in these kids? Because every kid ain't the same. That's the problem. You can't throw one test out there for every kid. I mean, some kids are a little slower, some are better, and that's where teachers got to teach truth, teach life, teach that kind of stuff. Get away from I don't agree no woke nonsense, but teach truth, teach life skills, teach what needs to be taught. Where when a kid graduates school, he's got a life. He knows how maybe a trade. He knows how to be an electrician. He knows he's not having to go start over. So we
mhm.
stick these kids in classrooms for till they don't do 18 years, but mainly 18 years. They're stuck in a classroom being taught how to take a test. They graduate high school. Some go to college, but the rest of them don't, and they got to start over.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that they ever did was take out the shop classes and the tech classes, because I grew up in New York City.
Yeah.
But when you went to middle school, that's when you got your shop classes. You got like cooking and sewing and drafting and typing. And I'm trying to remember some wood shop and printing press. Well, back then, of course, I'm old.
Yeah.
So we actually had the metal plates, printing press, and all that stuff. But
I mean, whatever. So to me, every person should have to take one of them. Then even you should take even if it's just a semester, you should take an electrical class, a plumbing class, an air conditioner class, a mechanical class, and figure out what you want to do. Maybe that's your 8th or ninth grade. Then your 10th, 11th, 12th, you can perfect that trade if
mhm.
you want to go there. But if not, let's say you want to go to college, you want to do business, Well, you own a home. You know how many homeowners don't know how to change an air filter? Don't know what a breaker is? Don't know what an outlet is? Don't know how electricity works? I
Yeah.
turn a faucet on, it ain't working. I
We
must.
used to use a penny in the breaker box.
Yeah.
That's
And people
back
have
in the
no idea.
day.
People have no idea to live. And what it does, it costs them money because now you're calling an electrician, you're calling a plumber, and then you have the ability of getting ripped off because you have no idea what he done, how he done it, because
Well,
you have
it
no
teaches
knowledge.
the kid to be self-sufficient. It teaches them a skill, and all those, trades are really good skills. You're still going to need plumbers. You're still going to need roofers. You're still going to need a lot of people, electricians. So those should be the tech schools that you go into high school, and then we should continue. We should bring back the shop classes in the middle school because now the kids are taking these things, and then when they go to high school they can decide, oh well, I can do this from this shop class and advance to the next level in the high school tech class. And it teaches them a responsibility. It teaches them that they have a skill, and some kids will realize, hey, I want to be outdoors, I want to do air conditioning, or I don't like being behind a desk. It gives them an idea to get ready for for graduation. Like they did a study, probably, oh man, time goes so fast. It might be 20 years that long. A study in my town for skilled labor to bring a certain type of workforce here, and it was so low.
It is everywhere.
And it's like, that's terrible because you have to be able to attract businesses, manufacturing, things like that, so that you have skilled labor. Not everybody has a tech background or an IT background or, a secretary background. I've seen women become electricians, and so we
Well,
got to
right.
have those
Start a
options.
company. Start a company. You know what I'm saying? Women have electrical companies. There's so much that can be done. We've allowed society and the government to put college education in the forefront and most important.
That came through Obama.
Yeah. And it's you see where it is. You got people who it's test, 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 get a good grade, so you go to college, then you go through college, and what do you learn there just to have a degree? And we see now these kids
And to get broke.
and you're broke.
Because the interest rates are so high. Do you realize that college? I don't know how old your daughter is, but my
Cost
daughter's.
5 grand. But I also did Florida prepaid when she was a baby.
I did
Same
Florida
thing in college.
prepaid, but my daughter took forensic psychology, and that type of degree you have to have a certain credited college. So she ended up in Colorado and got accepted in a private program. But her loan on the interest on her loan for her master's degree is almost 7%.
Yeah.
I'm
I
like, how they ever going to pay that off? It's a student loan. It should never be more than my house mortgage interest rate.
The only thing I paid my daughter, so she didn't have it. But yeah, so I did Florida prepaid when she was a child. Then she was going to a public school, and then she came home, wanted to go to a private school here, Florida Southern College, and it cost me about 25 grand. Which I did a loan, same deal, SBA, whatever, small SBA loan, however that government loan, and it cost me that. I pay. My goal was to get her. She's 21, 22. She has no debt.
Yeah, I
Everything
wish my daughter didn't have any debt.
and here you go and get a platform, whatever she needed, and no debt. So I paid for everything. So she moved out in 22.
Now that they took it, they threw the loans back in. She's like, "Mom, my interest rate is so high, and I can't. I'm not making enough to pay my." She does everything herself, so she's like, she makes good money. She's in doing her profession, but she's like, the rent, and the gas and all this. We even bought her a car, and it's still hard. So I'm like, how, she's got stuff. She's got the help that other people don't have. So how are they even doing it?
I don't know. And that's where I had a friend years ago. He worked for State Farm, and he had an opportunity to move up, and he went from like making 89,000, moved to make 250 grand. But he said you got to have a 4 year degree. And he said, I tell you what, let me work at a normal thing for 6 months if I can do the job. Let me do it and do that. And he did. He lived now he makes what college, and that's where we got to get these businesses away from demanding college degrees, and that kind of stuff, and let somebody go in there and learn a skill and do it. And I don't know if it's a scam. Charlie Kirk called it a scam, right? A scam to where these big businesses and colleges and governments working together to make that.
Well, why do the college loans have to be 7%,
Yeah,
6%? You know, it's like, why does it have to be this is your future of your nation. So
yeah.
why are you strapping it
We're creating
to debt?
colleges and we're putting tax dollars into colleges. People should be able to go there really for free in some way, somehow.
Yeah, and then the professors are double dipping because they're writing books and then they're saying you have to buy my book for this class.
Yeah,
It's like, so the professors are making so much money, they're rich.
yeah,
And it's like, you're supposed to be helping this other generation that's actually working hard to be somebody. They're not the generation that is entitled. They're the generation that's working
yeah,
to be contributors to society, but instead we're strapping them. And then all the poor people are just living off of the system,
yeah.
And so I'm just so concerned about the younger people. I'm like, why can't we just, because the colleges
Right.
receive state funding.
Well,
So why can't there be an agreement that says, okay, we're going to help fund you, but you can't have these interest rates.
right.
You need to negotiate with whoever's writing those loans at, 3%, 3.5%. And then of course the degree, you go from an AA degree, you pay this much. You go to your BA, you pay this much. You go to your master's, you pay this much. You know,
Well, I think
and
everybody has an opportunity. My daughter did that in dual enrollment, so she graduated. You
my
know,
daughter did too.
so I didn't know about it. Nobody told me about it, but
Yeah.
it was only to a limited number of kids too, and that's not fair. It should be in every school. Everybody should have the opportunity to graduate with an AA. But that's what we're going to push college and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that takes a lot of work. My daughter actually decided to do fewer dual enrollment classes, and this was her response. I want to have memories of being a teenager.
Well,
Because they have to work so hard
yeah.
when they're at that point where they're actually taking dual enrollment classes. It's like work, 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 work.
Well, my daughter, so she had opportunity. We had her. She went to public school. She went to private school, a little bit of public school, then back in private school. Then her high school, she wanted to go public school, and I allowed her. Then her last 2 years, you're going to dual enrollment, which goes to Polk State College. And she fought me. I want to have a high school experience. I want to have that. I said, you need to do this. So once she done it, she loved it because sometimes she didn't have to be at school like nine to one class, 9 to 10:30. Then the next class wasn't until 1 o'clock. So she come home, hung out, then went back. So she really got the college experience level 12 and the freedom. So she liked that a lot better. So
Yeah.
that's usually right.
Well, that's great. Our kids are so important to us, and and everybody's kids are important to us, and they need to have that future for them. We need to leave a country for them. And the state of Florida is one of the best states to live in. And whoever takes over to be governor, they really need to fight for Florida because Florida is now getting a lot of traffic from these states that have failed.
Yeah.
And when you live in a state like that all your life, even if you have a Republican or a conservative way of thinking, there's things in a red state like this that you're going to be like, wow, why are you doing that? They're so used to living in a blue state and having the entitlements that a blue state tries to give them that here you're more independent. We don't have that many programs. I remember I met a lady that moved even from Miami to my small little town. She's like, I can't believe I have to cut that tree. It's right there in the ditch. That should be the county's. And I'm like, no, that's really your property. It's sort of the county if they have to dig it out, but it's an extension of your property. So you have to cut that
You
tree
got to
down.
mow it. You got to keep it up. You got.
Yeah. She's like, well, in Miami, they did this. And I says, well, you kind of moved here because you liked it, right? It's not Miami.
Well, that's what I tell people too is, our governor right now and other constituents are welcoming all these New Yorkers to come here. And the reason they're coming here is because we are a great state. But the reason why they're coming here is they reap what they've sowed for so many years. And
Mm-hmm.
they're coming here they haven't changed nothing. They haven't changed the way they live. They haven't changed the thought process. They haven't changed the way they vote. And ultimately, with that big influence people, it could affect Florida.
It really could because when they come down here, they don't realize all the natural laws that we restrictions we have to protect, the
Yeah.
natural resources that we have here. I was talking to somebody from up north. I don't know if it was New York or Pennsylvania, but to build a concrete slab on their property, and because they had a ditch that went into the lake, there was all these restrictions and permits that they had to get, and they had to meet certain like slabs depth or whatever, and they were like, and when I built something in the back of my house in New York, it didn't, they're just taking money out of my pocket here. And I'm like, yeah, some of that is true, but the other part is that you're living in a place where there's lagoons and fish, and it's more natural here than it is in the concrete city you came from,
Yeah. And we,
you
we have our
know
values, we have our rights, and we want to stand on them. And back to godly values, you know, they've allowed so much deception to happen in these other states, and you see the fruit of it. And we need time
hmm
to get away from the truth.
yeah. So I'm trying to think of other things that I can ask you. The Florida is a pretty tough place right now when it comes to all these people coming here because there's a lot of division. I don't know if you've run into it knocking on doors where you might come across a person from up north or a Democrat, and they say you're a Republican, and then they try to ask you a question. I know when I knocked on doors, they were like, "What's abortion?" you know, "What do you say about that?" And they just would get angry and close the door, some
Yeah.
of them.
Well,
So
it's
we have
it's
coming
always
here.
love. It's issue love, and my answer, hey man, you got a right to vote for who you want to.
Mhm.
This is who I am. I'm going to run on truth. I'm going to stand on truth. I'm not going to get bought. I'm not in it for the wrong reasons. I'm in it for the total right reasons. I'm in it for the people of Florida, to keep Florida Florida and make Florida better. We're going in the right direction in a lot of things. We've got to continue them. And there's some things we're not doing, which we've talked about: public education, overdevelopment, resources, waterways, for all that kind of stuff we got to do. And that's what I'm willing to get on. And if you don't like that and you don't want it, and some people, no matter what you do, I can write somebody a check, but you give people $1 million and still be happy. You know,
Mhm.
they're stuck in their ways, they're stuck in their thoughts, and I'm good with that. And I've learned that along the way, especially with Christianity. There's some people that may kind of pray for you, get away from me, don't talk to me about it. And I go, okay, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And I'll walk away, you know. But my job is I'm giving you an opportunity to have a candidate that's going to be for Florida, that's going to do the
Mhm.
right thing, not just say them. And back to fruit, for the last 10 years, I've provided Florida with great resources, time, effort, treasures, everything for free. We don't charge or get grants, big stuff, that kind of stuff. We got an AR
Yeah.
fund during after COVID. We didn't get it before. We didn't get till after. We didn't know we was getting it, but we did it anyhow. But it helped us after the fact. But we do it because people need help, need hope. So that's what I told you. I'm just giving you an opportunity. You either like me or don't matter to me.
Yeah, we need options. We always need options, and I think it's great when we have grassroots candidates running in because you know, they're they're not bought out by the establishment. I think the longer people are in, I would love to see term limits because some people say, well, if they're good at what they do, that, then we'll be losing a good Republican. But the way I see it is, well, it's always going to be that way because nobody's going to want to run against the establishment.
And
It's
establishment rules, and I'm running that now. I'm a conservative Republican, but the establishment ain't going. You see it. You look at the polls. I'm not on one of the polls. There's not one poll even talks or says anything or about me or anything.
No, they cover all of the popular guys that everybody knows, like Byron Donalds or Paul Renner, they're focusing on those people. They're talking about Casey DeSantis and so, but I even checked up. I looked at some of the runners that are active now, and some of them don't even have websites. So you're good there. Like I
Oh
tried
yeah,
to
we got
look
a
up.
website. We're raising money. I mean, we're 2 million views a month on social media. We started at 4,000 viewers. I think we're now 24,000 on Facebook and growing. We're growing in every aspect, and we got people from all over the state of Florida, from about every county, reaching out. And a lot of them are Republicans, and they're calling the Republicans party. And, hey, why ain't I hearing about this guy? And They don't
Yeah,
get.
I think the best thing you can do is to be really easily accessible so you can get on more podcasts and get on. I know you're probably visiting a lot of the RECs and all those, that little circle of people, but the community is the best way because you're running for the whole state,
That's right.
so it's a big territory that you have got to cover.
Yeah, well, that's the difference. Is me, I've been kind of, which I'm going to reach the people and that. The other guys are going to the RECs. They're going to every REC meeting, and the thing is, they're welcome to them. I'm not even welcome to them. We reach out to them, they won't reach back, and that's fine. But we're not here for the Republican Party. We're here for the people of Florida.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I started doing the podcast because I wanted to reach out to the community. I felt like the community, I know that the Republican Party plays a role and does stuff, but a lot of times they're in that circle of the Republican Party. And the only time you really see them is when they're knocking on doors and they're trying to get you to get out the vote thing.
Right.
But and the rest of the time, the community is not really involved. Like right now, I would love to see the Republican Party doing podcasts and pulling in community members and talking with the community members about topics that really, concern them and what they want to see in a candidate and uh, some way to reach the community because the community is hard to reach, you know.
The problem is
Uh,
their head's too big right now. They got
yeah.
they got the Democrats are so far left. They really don't feel like having options if they're coming over. Then you have all the people of the Trump, the MAGA, that are red because of Trump, but it's not really because of the Republican Party. So the Republican Party thinks it's them, so they kind of got a big head right now. I think they're missing it.
Yeah, yeah. So I really appreciate that you're running because it's not an easy task to run.
No.
It's exhausting, and I'm glad that your wife has your back because otherwise she might kick you to the curb.
She's threatened many times, even through ministry. So I feel like the Lord set me up for this through ministry, just because long hours, talk. I mean, even when whether it's politics or ministry, people talk bad about you. They try to find something wrong with you. They try to dig just because you're making them feel guilty because you're living the right life, and they, you know, some people
Why?
think you understand with politics, people are going to lie about you. They're going to call you this and that. I'm like, have you ever been part of a church? Have you ever been part of a ministry? I think they're just as bad, if not worse.
Well, there's gossip everywhere you go. There's always the gossip. Yeah, the people that are always talking and judging.
Yeah,
So you can't run away from that. But I looked at your website, I checked you out. You've got a nice ministry, and I can tell that that is your life. That you really have a lot of passion for that, and you're so proud of it. And you should be. You've done a lot, and you're not taking a bunch of government money to do it. You've put a lot of yourself into it, and that's just blood, sweat, and tears. And if you're going to do that for the state of Florida, that's what the state of Florida needs. Ron DeSantis has been out there on some subjects that have really been hardcore. I can't say, and I probably, even if you were the governor, I probably wouldn't agree with everything that you would do because that's just,
it's
we're not
people.
robots.
Everybody's different. Everybody has a different opinion, and some things you don't know all the facts on. You don't know all the depth and truth, and some things you can't know, maybe not never know, and they can't say. But you just got to do what's best for the people. Every second of every day.
Yes, you have to do what's best for the people, stay in your constitutional lines and keep government small. I think that's what's most important. Florida does not have a state tax. And I know a lot of people are trying to convince people that, oh, we'll have to have a state tax if you get rid of a property tax. And I'm like,
I
are
tell
you
people,
kidding?
so, and I know people don't want to hear this, but even if you had to add 1 or 2% to a sales tax, it ain't going to stop you from spending money. You're gonna, if you love purses, you're gonna go buy a purse. Whether it's 1% or 2%. But the difference is, if it's 1 or 2%, I cannot pay that tax because I don't have to spend. If I don't go out and buy anything, I don't have to spend. All your needs and necessities are untaxed, taxed. So your food and all that stuff taxed. So I can eat and do what I need to every day without being taxed. But I can't have a home and live in it right now without it being taxed. If I don't pay my tax, they take it from me. So it's
Right. And it shouldn't be that way.
no big deal. And people say, well, the poor is going to get hurt worse on one. Well, guess what? The poor don't get spend money. Don't spend it if you got it.
Yeah, you should be able to own your property. If you pay it off, it's yours. You shouldn't have to worry about them taking it away because you're older and you're living on a fixed income, and they keep assessing it and it's higher, and it reads your taxes get higher. You shouldn't have to worry about that, especially when you've worked your whole entire life, been a good citizen, contributed to the county. It shouldn't be that way.
And it's the
And
greatest thing of generational wealth we have. Really, that's what we pass down to our next generation. How many times have we seen that lost?
mhm. Yeah, it becomes an inheritance, and then you have to think about, or are they going to try to tax that inheritance now? Oh, it's
Yeah.
you. They didn't have any taxes for years and years and years. Well, we're going to evaluate that house for this much, and the new inheritance that you get is going to be taxed at this astronomical amount of money.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that I can see coming that way too. But you got to cross that bridge when you get to it. But I do hope to see the tax go away. I really do.
I've said that for many years. The funny thing is, I had a conversation with some Republicans earlier in the year, like January, February, and they said, "What's your platform?" I said, "One of them is I want to get rid of property tax." They laughed at me and said that never happened. 3 4 months later, DeSantis comes up with the idea.
So, Bobby, did we ever throw up your website for everybody to
I
check it
don't think
out?
we did. No, ma'am.
I don't think we did. Let's try to throw that up real quick. And
I know it's long, but I made it when people Google, it'd be easy.
well, you want to tell them your website?
www.bobbywilliamsforfloridagovernor.com.
Say it again.
www.bobbywilliamsforfloridagovernor.com.
Do you have a phone number where they can reach out to your office?
Yes, ma'am. 863-247-3257.
That's awesome. Well, Bobby, I want to say thank you. We kind of went over, but I had such a good time talking with you. I really enjoyed your company on Binford Chronicles. And keep at it. Stay tough. God is with you. There's never anything to fear, right? When God is near, He's in your heart
God's
always.
always good.
So thank you, Bobby, for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining us here at Binford Chronicles. That was a great session with Bobby Williams. He's running for governor of Florida. Now, I want you to remember to share, like, subscribe. I'm on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Join me on every Friday at 7 p.m. for local news on the board report brought to you by IRC Media. Our contributors are Thomas Augustus, editor and chief of the Sunshine Journal at thomasaugustus.substack.com. We also have another contributor, Kevin McDonald, who was previously the school board member, and Jennifer Pippin, the Indian River County chapter chair for Moms for Liberty. Connect with all of our podcast contributors like Able Child, Shattering the Narrative, Conspiracy Club, and the Spark Free Press by visiting IndianRiverConnections.com. That's IndianRiverConnections.com. And thank you again for joining us here at Binford Chronicles. Have a good evening.